Imagine building your entire life around someone you thought you knew, someone you trusted with everything. Now, picture walking into a hospital room, ready to support your wife through the most vulnerable moment of her life, only to find out that everything you believed in was a lie. What if, in that one moment, the truth about your marriage came crashing down? What if your world shattered because the child in her arms wasn't yours?
Welcome to Secret Affaires Stories.
Tonight, we're diving deep into a tale of betrayal, heartbreak, and the ultimate quest to reclaim what's rightfully yours. Stay with us as we unravel the truth behind a marriage built on lies, and discover how one man fought to take back control of his life.
This is the story you won't forget.
Trust me, you won't want to miss it. Part 1. The Discovery of Betrayal. The air in the hospital room was thick, heavy, suffocating, as if the very walls were closing in on me. I stood there, frozen in the doorway, eyes locked on the woman I had loved for 6 years, but she was no longer the same. No, this was someone else entirely. Someone I didn't recognize. Ashley, my wife, lay in the hospital bed, a soft, satisfied smile plastered across her face. Her beauty, untouched by the pain of childbirth, radiated in the sterile light of the room, casting a sharp contrast to the chaos swirling inside me. She held a child in her arms. But it wasn't our child. I could see it. Feel it. Everything about this moment screamed betrayal. I stepped closer, each step heavy with the weight of the truth. I could barely breathe, but I couldn't look away either. The baby, our baby, was nowhere to be found. Instead, in her arms, was a child that had my heart racing for all the wrong reasons. A child whose father was not me. It wasn't even a suspicion anymore. It was fact, hanging thick in the air like smoke that I couldn't escape. Ashley's eyes gleamed as she looked down at the infant, her gaze filled with an unsettling satisfaction. She looked like she had won. She wasn't even the slightest bit remorseful. She was smug, and I could feel the sharp sting of that smugness cut through me like a blade. There was no apology in her eyes, only a coldness that made my heart shatter in ways I never thought possible. She looked up at me, her voice soft, almost syrupy, as she broke the silence.
Can you take me to see Matthew?
I want to show him the baby he made, she said, as if it was the most natural thing in the world. Matthew.
The name it me like a hammer to chest.
The man who had stolen my wife from me, the one who had left me in the dark while he and Ashley wove their web of lies. My hands trembled involuntarily.
I felt my body freeze, a wave of nausea rolling over me.
This wasn't real. It couldn't be real. Her words echoed in my mind, repeating, taunting me, until I could no longer keep the floodgates closed. I walked toward her slowly, deliberately, my steps heavy with the weight of this moment. Every part of me wanted to scream, wanted to break everything in sight, but I knew better. I was done being a fool. Done being her puppet. I wasn't going to let her control the narrative any longer. Not when I had been so blind. Not when she had destroyed everything. My eyes met hers, and in that moment, everything that had been bottled up inside me, all the hurt, the confusion, the anger burst free. I reached for the birth certificate lying on the tray beside her bed, the one that held the final proof of her betrayal.
With a swift motion, it tore it in half.
Then again. And again, until it fluttered to the floor in small ragged pieces, like the remnants of the life we had built. The room seemed to close in on me as the sound of paper tearing filled the air, a loud, piercing noise that echoed in the silence. Ashley's father shot up from his chair, his face red with rage. "You crazy!" he yelled, his voice shaking with fury. But I didn't flinch. My focus remained on Ashley, the woman who had destroyed everything I believed in. I could feel the weight of the eyes in the room, nurses, strangers who probably thought I was the one who had done something wrong. But none of them knew. None of them knew the truth of what she had done. What we had been through, what she had done to us.
Not my child.
Not my problem, I said coldly, my voice as frozen as my heart felt in that moment. Her smile faltered, the cracks beginning to show as the smugness drained from her face. The realization of what I had just done hit her like a tidal wave. She tried to regain her composure, but I wasn't finished. Not by a long shot. I turned to the drawer beside her bed, pulling out hospital documents, more lies, more evidence of the life she had created behind my back. With one swift motion, I tore them in half too. Each rip was a symbol of my broken trust. Every shred of paper that fell to the floor felt like the final act in a drama that had been playing out for far too long. "I'm done, Ashley," I said, the words cold and final.
You want me to raise another man-child?
The one you made with that gym rat?
I'm not your fool anymore.
Her face flushed, the color draining from it as she realized the depth of her betrayal. Her eyes welled with tears, but I felt nothing.
Not pity, not sympathy, only a strange sense of clarity.
A sense of relief that, at long last, I had made the decision to let go. Her tears didn't move me.
Nothing could move me now.
The life I had known was gone, shattered beyond repair. And I was done being a part of it. But how had we gotten here? How had everything fallen apart so completely? The memories flooded my mind, one after another, like a storm I couldn't escape. It started months ago, before the late nights, before the phone calls.
Before the lies.
I had given her space, thinking she needed it. I had trusted her, and she had taken that trust and shattered it into pieces. I had watched as she changed, slowly, at first new makeup, new perfume, new lingerie. It wasn't just the little things. It was the feeling that something was different, something was off. And I had ignored it. I had let it slide, believing in the best of her, despite the creeping doubts. But now, in this hospital room, everything was clear. The cracks in our marriage, the lies, the betrayals, they were all here in front of me. And they weren't going away.
Par deux, the unraveling truth. The days after the hospital room, after the destruction of the birth certificate, felt like an eternity.
I couldn't escape the images of Ashley holding that child. Her smug, self-satisfied smile was etched in my mind like a scar I couldn't remove. But I had no choice but to keep moving forward. The truth had come crashing down in a single moment, but the pieces of it had been scattered months ago. Now, all I could do was look back and try to piece it together. It all started innocently enough. I never suspected anything was wrong. I was focused on my career, building a future for us. But as time went on, something shifted in Ashley. It wasn't obvious at first, but I should have noticed. She started coming home late, later than usual. I remember the first few times she explained it away, as if everything was normal. The book club ran late, she said one evening. Stacy had a breakdown, I had to stay, she told me another. I gave her the benefit of the doubt, of course. She was a busy woman, and I was working late too. But as the nights stretched into weeks, and the excuses grew more frequent, I started to feel a cold knot of unease in the pit of my stomach. The kind of knot you get when you know something isn't right but can't quite put your finger on it. Then, the small signs started. It was like watching a slow unraveling of a fabric I had held together for so long. New makeup, bold, dramatic colors that she had never worn before. Perfume, a sharp citrus vanilla scent that made my stomach churn. It wasn't a fragrance she would normally choose. I hated it. And the lingerie, that unfamiliar lingerie that she kept tucked away in the drawer. It wasn't for me, that was certain. But the most jarring sign was her phone. She had always been protective of her privacy, but now it was different. Her phone was always close, always flipped down when it wasn't in use. Notifications were off, and whenever I asked her about it, she'd brush it off with a quick, "It's just for work." But something about the way she was guarding it made my heart race. It wasn't just the secrecy, it was the feeling that I was being shut out of her life, completely and utterly. I didn't want to believe it. I couldn't believe it. She was my wife. I had loved her with everything I had. But the signs were piling up, and no matter how much I tried to ignore them, they became impossible to dismiss.
One night, he came home early.
I had managed to cut a meeting short and was eager to spend some time with her. The house was unusually quiet, too quiet. I went up to the nursery, where I could hear the faintest murmur of voices. I stopped just outside the door, feeling an instinctual unease settling over me. It was Ashley, sitting in the rocking chair, her phone pressed to her ear. She was whispering, almost inaudibly, but I heard it. "Do you think she'll have your dimples?" she asked.
The word cut through the silence like a blade.
I couldn't breathe.
Your dimple, not ours.
My heart dropped into my stomach.
Your dimple.
Not ours. I stepped back, unable to move, unable to think. I felt the cold rush of nausea sweep over me, followed by a hot, suffocating anger. But I didn't confront her then. I couldn't. Instead, I went to the car and sat there for 90 minutes, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. The world around me felt like it was spinning, but I couldn't make sense of anything. The truth had been right there, in front of me. It was in the way she said his dimples, in the way her voice betrayed her, but I didn't want to face it. Not yet. When I finally walked back inside, she greeted me with that smile, the one that didn't belong to me anymore. That smile was a lie, one I didn't want to believe, but now I had no choice. Over the next few days, I began to gather the pieces. I found her hidden stash, tucked away in a drawer I hadn't thought to open before. There, in a small box, were journals, her journals. Pages and pages of handwritten notes. Dates. Arts. Initials. All the things I hadn't been a part of. As I flipped through the pages, I could see the lies laid out in black and white. She had been living a double life, and I had been blind to it. But it didn't end there. No.
I found a flash drive buried beneath the journal.
My hands were shaking as I plugged it into my laptop, my stomach in knots. What I saw on that drive made my blood run cold.
Vidéo.
Proof. Videos of Ashley with Matthew, captured in moments of intimacy. They weren't just fleeting, meaningless encounters. They were evidence of a relationship, of a betrayal so deep I couldn't even begin to understand it. I stared at the screen, numb. Each video was another shard of the life I thought I had. The woman I loved had been with another man, and I hadn't even known. I wanted to feel anger, but instead, I felt hollow. Like everything I had built with Ashley had been a lie from the beginning. And now, the truth was staring me in the face, undeniable. The pain was overwhelming, but it wasn't just the betrayal. It was the realization that I had given her everything, my trust, my love, and she had shattered it without a second thought. This wasn't just an affair. It was a complete and utter destruction of everything I thought was real. The pieces of the puzzle were finally in place. And now, I had no choice but to face the consequences.
No more pretending. No more lies.
The truth had come crashing down, and I was left standing in the wreckage, trying to pick up the broken pieces of my heart. Part 3, Reclaiming Control and Moving On. The days following the hospital incident felt like a blur, a heavy fog of emotions clouding my every thought. But through that fog, one thing became crystal clear: I wasn't just fighting to end my marriage. I was fighting to reclaim my life. Every part of me, every ounce of my being, was determined to take control back from Ashley, from the lies, from the wreckage she had left behind. I knew that to truly heal, I had to break free from the shackles of what we once had. And that meant letting go of everything that had kept me tied to her. The divorce papers were the first step. It wasn't an easy decision. There was a part of me that wanted to fight, to hold on to the memories, to salvage whatever was left of our life together. But I knew deep down that there was nothing to salvage. The woman I had loved was gone, replaced by a stranger. And the life we had built had been nothing but a facade, crumbling under the weight of her betrayal. So I made the call. I contacted a lawyer, and the divorce papers were filed. The process wasn't quick, but I made sure Ashley knew the extent of her actions. I wasn't going to let her get away with what she had done, not without knowing that I knew the truth. I sent her the evidence, the videos, the journals, everything I had uncovered. But that wasn't all. I wasn't just exposing her to me, I was exposing her to Matthew's wife. The woman who had been lied to, who had been deceived just as I had. She deserved the truth, just as much as I did. I sent her everything. The texts. The photos. The proof that her husband had been with my wife. The moment I hit send on that email, I felt a strange sense of power. It wasn't revenge. No, this wasn't about getting back at them. This was about me, about taking control of my life and making sure that they both faced the consequences of their actions. I had been kept in the dark for too long. Now, the light was shining on everything.
No more shadow. No more lies.
The divorce was finalized months later. It felt like a weight had been lifted from my chest, but the weight of the past still clung to me like a second skin. It wasn't going to be easy. There were moments when I wanted to give up, when the pain of it all seemed too much to bear. But I knew I couldn't go back to the person I was. I couldn't let Ashley's betrayal define who I was going to become. And so, I began to rebuild.
Piece by piece.
It wasn't a fast process, and there were days when I felt like I wasn't getting anywhere. But I kept moving forward. I joined a book club, a small, quiet step toward connecting with myself again. It wasn't just about reading books. It was about finding a space where I could think, reflect, and allow myself to heal. The discussions were simple, light-hearted, but for the first time in months, I felt like I was part of something again. something that didn't come with the weight of guilt and betrayal. I also began journaling. At first, it was hard to put my thoughts on paper. How do you write about the devastation you felt?
How do you capture the emptiness that consume you at night?
But as I kept writing, as I let the words flow without holding back, I realized something. Writing was freeing. It was my way of processing the pain, of turning the hurt into something tangible.
Something die coup de contrôle.
Therapy came next. I had resisted it at first.
I tok ti coup dans de l'evryting on my own.
But I was wrong. The pain, the anger, the confusion, it was too much to carry by myself. Talking to someone who could guide me through the storm, became an essential part of my healing process. With every session, I started to see things more clearly. I began to understand that it wasn't just the betrayal that had hurt me, it was the way I had let it define me for so long. I had let Ashley's actions take away my sense of self-worth. I had allowed her lies to shatter my confidence, my belief in who I was. But I was learning that I didn't have to let that happen anymore. Through therapy, I realized that betrayal, though painful, can be a catalyst for growth. It can tear you down, but it can also force you to rebuild yourself stronger, more resilient. It wasn't about forgiving Ashley. It wasn't even about getting closure from her. It was about me, about finding my own peace, my own freedom. And freedom, I realized, wasn't just about leaving Ashley behind. It was about reclaiming my own life, my own power. I wasn't the man I used to be, and that was okay. I didn't need to be that man anymore. I had become someone new, someone who had faced the worst kind of betrayal and come out the other side stronger. There were still scars, of course. Scars that would never completely heal. The memories of Ashley, of our life together, would always linger in the background. But they didn't control me anymore. I didn't let them.
In time, il irned to love myself again. Il irned to trust myself.
I learned that betrayal may break you, but it can also be the thing that sets you free. As the story of betrayal and recovery comes to an end, it's clear what we endure doesn't define us. It's how we rise from the ashes that matters. The journey of self-discovery, healing, and reclaiming control can be painful, but it's also empowering. If you've ever felt betrayed or lost, remember this: you have the power to rebuild your life, stronger than before.
No matter the scar, they don't define you.
What defines you is the strength to keep moving forward. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever faced your own struggles and found a way through, I want to hear from you. Don't forget to like, share, and comment below. Let's keep the conversation going. And of course, if you want more stories like this, subscribe to Secret Affairs Stories and hit the bell icon so you never miss the next chapter. Because in this world of hidden truths, there's always more to uncover. Stay tuned, and stay strong.